Hello again, it's Jen Kramer. It's day 2 of creating your first interactive website with Softer and Airtable. And today's focus is Airtable. So as you saw yesterday, we talked about what Airtable is and what it does, a few of its advantages and some of the things that technology just doesn't do. And today we are going to launch into setting up our very first Airtable base. So one of the things that you need to do anytime you start a spreadsheet, anytime you start a database of any kind, and if you start an Airtable base, is to think about what exactly it is that you're going to do. What are you going to record? What is it that you need to store inside of that spreadsheet or that database? Because sometimes that can lead to all kinds of problems and issues down the road. So what we're going to do here is the easiest way, I think, for people who don't have a background in database design, which is, let's face it, pretty much all of us, is to start by putting together a form. And you don't need anything but pen and paper to do that. I've typed one up here inside of Google Docs so that you can see it electronically. But if it was just me, I'd pull out a piece of paper and a pen and I'd start drawing. What exactly is it that I'm going to record? What is it that I need to store inside of the database? And how do I need to get that kind of information? So as I've said to you before, we're building the Air Pets website. And so all of these pets are pets that live around here in the neighborhood, and we're going to display them on this web page. So we need to know some basic information about these particular pets. And so I thought a little bit about what is that and what is it exactly that we need to include. And so I went ahead and just drew up this little form. So we want to ask for a pet name. That's probably pretty short, right? Who is the owner? So we want to give the owner a possibility of their name. Or if there's no owner, is that pet available for adoption? So we're going to have a little check there if they can adopt, that can be adopted. Lots of people in my neighborhood have dogs and cats. So I'm going to mostly focus on dogs and cats, and then we can have other. We have male and female pets and whether they're spayed or neutered. Remember, spayed is for females, neutered is for males, and intact means that their reproductive organs are still present. And then anything else we should know about this particular pet, because sometimes you need a little block where you can just sort of type in a whole bunch of stuff that you want people to know about this particular pet. And of course, we want a photo. And that's really all that we need to do here. Just go ahead and spell it out just like this on a piece of paper, because believe it or not, you've just designed our first Airtable base. Now all we have to do is think about how do we make this little form show up inside of Airtable. So go ahead and open up Airtable, log in if you're not already logged in, and you will probably see nothing here. You'll just see add a workspace down here at the bottom if you've not used Airtable before, because I have used Airtable before. I have courses listed here in practice, and so now I'm going to make a new workspace. So that's where you're going to start as well. Click on add a workspace. It's going to ask you, are you sure? Yes, please. Go ahead and create a workspace. I'm going to call this Air Pets, because that's what we're working on here inside of this particular workspace. And then, shockingly, the next thing to do is click on Add a Base. And it's going to ask us if we want to start with a template, or if we want to import data, or if we want to start from scratch. Now, it's completely possible there's a template somewhere that we could use to start our Airtable base. But honestly, our Airtable base isn't that complicated, and it'll probably take us more time to look for the right template and then modify it than it will just to start with nothing at all. But this is where you would go to upload things like an Excel spreadsheet if you already have such a thing, or if you do want to start with a template, that's how you would do it. We're going to start from scratch, and we're going to give this a title. I'm going to call it Air Pets also. You can pick one of these fantastic colors. I'm partial to that sort of teal color there, but you can pick whatever you want that makes you happy. I also like the little bug because, hey, that's kind of pet sort of ish. There aren't any dogs or cats in here, so I'll pick the ladybug. And there's some other options that are down here. that we don't need to worry about at this particular point in time, whether it be shared or whether you want to move it to another workspace. None of that we need to worry about at the moment. So just pick a color, pick the bug, and then you can sort of click out of that to close that window, and then click right on Airpets, and we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the default table right here inside of Airtable. And as you see here, it's pre-configured with a couple of things. It gives us a name, some notes, some attachments, and a status. We don't have to use any of these things unless we really want to. So here for our status, if you click on the little arrow at the end of the column there, just go on ahead and go to delete field. We don't need that. Attachments, we don't need that either. Just go on ahead and delete that as well. As for over here on the side where it says name, name is something we're going to need, and it's going to be the pet name, right? So if we click the little down arrow over here, we could just rename this field, and we're going to call this pet name. Now, you'll notice underneath here that it's going to ask us about what kind of information are we going to collect. And it happens to be it's already picked the right thing for us, the single line of text. But there's many, many other options that are in here, and I'll talk about some of these other options as we go through the video. But notably, it's a single line of text. It's just the name of the pet. So we'll go ahead and choose that and say save. There you go. You've already configured your first field inside of your Airtable base. So now we might want to keep this notes column because we do have later on inside of our form, we have anything else we should know, right? Here, this extended notes field for anything that might matter about that pet. So let's hold on to that for the moment. But now we need to go ahead and start adding some other fields. So let's go ahead and add then the owner name. And that'll be a single line of text because it's just a name. If you wanted, you could collect these names, first name, last name, if you really wanted to, but our database is really, really simple. So we're just going to put it all in one blank. And now you can grab this and just drag it to where you want it to be, which is probably over here next to pet name. So now the next thing that we need to do here in our form is, if there's no owner, is the pet available for adoption? Check for yes. Okay, well, let's see if we can go ahead and add that. We're going to add a field, and I'm just going to say adoptable, right? Are they available for adoption? Now we could leave this as a single line of text and require people to type in the words yes and no, or we could see what our other options here are. Well, we can actually have the choice here of a checkbox. So in other words, that when it's checked, they're adoptable. When it's unchecked, they're not adoptable. Let's go ahead and choose that. Our checkbox. This is the way it's going to look. On the Pro plan, you'd be able to change the styling a little bit. Here, you get what you get, which is a little green check, which is fine with me. Go ahead and say save. And you'll see here, when you hover over a row, that you'll get a little box there that you can check or uncheck. And once again, you probably want to move that over to the side there next to notes. The next thing we're going to look up in our form is, what is the type of pet? Dog, cat, or other. And as you see here, we're only going to offer 3 options: dog, cat, or other. So we could have people type in dog, cat, or other. But what if people start typing in gerbils and hamsters and other various kinds of things? And what if they misspell? I know it's hard to misspell dog and cat, but people make typos all the time, or they do a capital dog versus a capital cat. If we actually have this set up such that we have dog, cat, and other, and you can only choose one of those kinds of things, we can set this up as a filter later on. What if I want to see just the dogs of the neighborhood, just the cats of the neighborhood? I can now filter based on a field like this. So let's see how we can set up something like that. We'll go ahead and add a new field here. We're going to give this a name, and we'll call this type of pet. And this time we're going to choose multiple select is what they call it. I like the name tagging better, but they call it a multiple select. Go ahead and choose that. and it's going to give us as many options as we want to add. So here we're going to add some options. I'm going to add dog. I'm going to add a cat, and I'm going to add an other. Now, notice that I turned on the colored options. You can turn those off and make this black and white. Not nearly as fun. And you can also go through here and choose exactly which colors you want to use here for your various animals. And of course, if you want more colors, then you can upgrade. So I like that blue, but I want a little bit more differentiation here. Let's make cats yellow, and let's make other pink. You pick your favorite colors. Go on ahead and say save. And now if we were entering data here, if we click on the plus sign, we'd only have the option of picking dog, cat, or other here inside of this blank. All right, so now that you have seen how this all works, why don't you tackle the pet gender, male and female? Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out exactly how you would go about adding another field to the Airtable database and setting it up as male or female. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through it now. Hopefully you paused that. And so we're going to go ahead exactly as you'd expect. We're going to add a new field here. We're going to call this pet gender. And we'll go ahead and choose the multiple select option. And I'm going to add an option of female, which of course is pink. And we'll add male, which of course is blue, because apparently those are the rules. Go on ahead and say save. And once again, we can go ahead and rearrange our fields exactly as we want, whatever's convenient for data entry purposes. Next one we're going to add is the spayed/neutered, yes or no. Can you go ahead and add that one? Go ahead and give that one a whirl as well. Okay, so two ways of going about this one. You can add spayed/neutered. And you might set this up as once again, a multiple select. And you could set this up as yes or no. That's one possible way of doing it. Or you could say spayed, neutered, or intact. And which is the right way of doing this? It depends on what it is exactly that you want to do and exactly on what level of filtering that you would require. Here we're going to rely on the fact that people know the difference between spaying and neutering. You could also, of course, combine those, spayed/neutered. Get rid of the individual option, or you could call it fixed. This is the hard part of web design, believe it or not, is managing the language. Exactly what are we going to call these things in order to make it clear to everybody what exactly it is that we're testing for. But I'll call it spayed, neutered versus intact, and we'll leave it at that. And of course, then we'll rearrange the order of our columns here. We're finally at the point where we're going to leave our column here for our notes. Anything that we want to know, there it is. And then the last thing that I want to add from my form is a photo. So we'll go ahead and add a field here, pet photo. And this is going to wind up being an attachment. So we'll go ahead and choose attachment here from the list. And this will allow you to attach images, documents, or other files that can be viewed or downloaded. In this case, we're going to attach our photo. But notice that Airtable isn't offering any way here to check and make sure that you've actually uploaded a photo. It doesn't check to make sure it's a photo of a pet. So this particular field, depending on who it is that is able to enter data into your Airtable database, you want to be a little bit careful. So we'll go on ahead and say save. And now we have all of the bones here for our Airtable database. So now we can go ahead and start entering some data. The data is coming right out of my head. So I will give you some data that you can use inside of your handout for day 2, but feel free to just go on ahead and type away here and have some fun. So we're going to start here with our pet name, Lightning. And Lightning is adoptable. He is a dog. He is male. And he's young. He's a baby because, you know, he hasn't been spayed or neutered yet. So he is still intact. So when we get to the notes field, you can go ahead and type your notes. It looks kind of awkward to type it in this tiny space. But remember, you can click on your double-headed arrow here or shift space, and you can start typing. Lightning is a charming puppy looking for his first home. He's 2 months old and is just stopping teething, although he still loves chewing on everything. Something like that. Now, if you notice here, there's no way for me to format the text inside of this particular area, and that's because we're using the pre-configured notes field that comes with Airtable. If you go in here and you go to customize field type, this will give you that same editing window here that we had for all of the other fields inside of our base. And notice that this is using the type of long text. It has an option here of turning on rich text formatting. So if you do that, you can add checklists, hyperlinks, headers, code blocks, and more. If you go ahead and turn that on and say save, yes, we'll go ahead and convert. When you click on this again, and now you can sort of highlight something, we can make it bold, right? He's 2 months old, bold. We could add a code block here. We can put in a link to something if we want to link off somewhere else. So bold, italic, strike through, and code and links. That's all the stuff that's available to you in that spot. And then as far as the pet photo goes, we'll go on ahead and add an attachment here. And this will give you a box you're probably familiar with from other various applications. You can either upload photos from your device or from somewhere out on the web. You can also upload things, take a photo right here actively. You can go to Google Drive, Dropbox, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. I'm actually just going to go to web search, and I'm going to type in German Shepherd. And this will give me all kinds of pictures of German Shepherds. And oh, look at those ears. There's a picture of Lightning. So we'll go on ahead and choose that, and that is how we'll just go about adding a photo here to our Airtable base. All right, so that is how you go about putting together your very first Airtable base. I've walked you through how to put in your first piece of data. I've got other data that's available for you inside of your handout for day 2 if you want to do exactly the same data that I'm doing. And if you want to go ahead and put in your own data, that's totally fine. Be sure you do a mix of pets, a mix of genders, and a mix of whether they're spayed, neutered, or intact. Other than that, have fun going ahead and creating your pet database with all the pets you've ever loved or your pets from your neighborhood. And in day 3, we're going to take a closer look at Softer and build the first version of our website.